A long time ago, far from now, a different time, a version of you created an entity called the Time Variance Authority. But two variants of the same Norse god murdered him, which resulted in the creation of new timelines, which would each see the rebirth of countless different versions of you.
Are you saying I created the TVA?
Something like that.
I know this must be overwhelming. If it's too much for you.
No. It's like the story of myself that I always imagined is true.
Welcome, everyone, to What the Fiction. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and this is our show, High Tea, Low Key. And with me for all of these episodes is Robin.
What? I cut my hair. Not that you can see it. Huh?
Yeah, it was just a trim.
It's pretty significant.
Okay. So you chose out the tea for today. So let's get into that.
It's an Earl Grey from Stash.
Yeah.
I got it at the grocery store.
And then what are we having with the Earl Grey?
We're having lemon cookies.
Yeah. So like you could have Earl Grey with like cream or milk and sugar, or you could even have it with lemon. That's a common thing. Or you could be like Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek and just have it hot.
Hot leaf water.
Hot leaf water, yeah. So we're having Earl Grey tea with lemon cookies today. You are welcome to join us as we have our tea. If you would like to have tea on your own or any other beverage of choice. All right. I'm going to have my tea with just a little bit of cream.
I'm probably going to have a lot of sugar.
Okay, well, that's your choice. We allow all kinds here. All right, let me try this Earl Grey.
Oh, I refilled the sugar.
The bergamot is strong with this one. I'm going to try my cookie. It's a lemon cream cookie. So,
How is it?
I like it. It's very lemony. So, like every episode, we cover Loki.
I mean, yeah, I hope. This episode is less Loki, more everything else key.
What else is everybody else doing?
Yeah.
What else does everybody else think?
Checking in with Renslayer, more like.
Yeah. And
High tea Renslayer.
High tea Renslayer. Although we do get an excellent hair watch in this one.
We do.
Yeah. This episode was episode 3 of season 2, and its title was 1893, which instantly I Googled and knew, okay, what happened in 1893? Really, the big thing that happened in 1893 was the World's Fair in Chicago. You could literally just Google it as like the top result, which is interesting.
I mean, yeah, the World's Fair was pretty significant.
And it's been an interesting thing, like the World's Fair, wherever it happens, especially in the United States, like the New York World's Fair is pretty famous. And it always sort of has this theme of
waiting for our Calgary World's Fair.
Not going to happen, probably.
Man.
No, it costs a lot of money. All right. Overview and themes. So we are exactly halfway through the season because there's 6 episodes. There's a lot of themes about partnership and being in union with He Who Remains and how he rejects partners. Also how Loki and He Who Remains are foils of each other. Do you know what a foil is?
Like opposites, or put in a comparison. Yes, I know what a foil is, Mom.
Okay, good. And then Order versus Chaos, which is back from last season. Did you have any other thoughts on?
Wait, we're halfway through the season. There's only 6 episodes.
There's only 6 episodes. Yeah. There's only 6 episodes in the first season.
I know. It just makes me sad. Do you think there's any significance behind the number 6?
For Loki?
Yeah.
I think it was the amount of episodes they could afford to make. All right.
I think that is interesting that, yeah, the order versus chaos is really strong in this episode. We even have, like, characters who represent it.
Especially Loki and Sylvie, right?
A little bit. I was thinking more Renslayer and Sylvie.
Yes, there is a pair off of that. Sylvie certainly represents a chaotic element that everyone seems to be fighting against right now.
Everyone is trying to find order in this chaotic time.
We open up the episode with old-timey version of the Marvel fanfare.
Silly music. Silly intro music.
So like a piano, sort of like a piano player version of it. It was really great. You love the Marvel symbol or Marvel title, how it turns into green and yellow.
I love it. Makes me so happy. Yeah. Just another overarching note before we get in the episode. There is still more amber and cyan. But this time, everything, if you look at every scene, the majority of the scenes are amber versus there's one or two that have a main cyan color palette. And like cyan is the accent color to the amber for most of this episode. Like, and I think that represents the lack of like there really isn't a lot of tonal shifts. Does that make sense?
They were using a filter to give it that like sort of how you have old photographs that are in sort of like a tawny range or sepia toned. What I found in this episode was especially orange of the TVA guidebook popped a lot against the sepia tones.
Also, Loki's green. That
also popped, yeah.
Just was gonna say, like, I think that it's very orangey because that represents the fact that while there is like tonal shifts in the plot, it's not as drastic as the last two episodes. Like everything feels very like, oh, this is a smooth like line of events versus the whoa, calm to intense, calm to intense, calm to intense, which was happening in the last two episodes. It's very like whoa, 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 whoa the whole time.
Yep.
And even the calm scenes, like what the ones we get with Miss Minutes, Victor Timely, and Ravonna all feel very like this should be calm, but it is still very intense.
It's always very tense with everybody, yeah. And it's because we're discovering new things about characters that we didn't know first season, which is really cool. So we open up the episode and it's 1868. Ravonna is there with Miss Minutes, and they arrive in Chicago. Was it cool to see Chicago kind of looking this way?
I've never been to Chicago.
No, but like just sort of like a city being like, oh yeah, this doesn't look like a city. It looks like, yeah. Miss Minutes comes out and sort of explains the plan, which is what turns out to be giving the TVA guidebook to a version of He Who Remains, a variant. Or
they're on the sacred timeline, right?
They are on the sacred timeline, which sort of counteracts what we heard from He Who Remains previously, that he was born in the year 3000 or something like that of the sacred timeline, and he traveled back in time. But it seems like there's maybe the sacred timeline is like the He Who Remains was actually a variant to begin with, and there was alternate timelines or alternate realities, universes that were all kind of coexisting, and then they could shift to each other, because that's the only way that you kind of have like a variant of Kang who was in like the year 3000 versus one who was born in Chicago.
Yeah, I was really struggling to like grasp why he's so far back in like...
Yeah, maybe it's more like, I think if you think about it more like Everything Everywhere All at Once, where there's every potential possibility of existence.
You could have existed back here and you could have existed 300 years from now.
But to me, it's interesting that the sacred timeline had a version of him that never turned evil without his help. That's what it's saying.
Well, there's just a guy who... So he's the OG, clearly. And then they turn him into a variant by giving him the guidebook.
So only variants seem to turn into... Because the sacred timeline is not really OG, but it is the one that Kang decided to maintain.
I don't really know why, though. It's so weird to me.
I don't know. The one that he was able to control, maybe? I'm not sure.
Maybe the one that went the farthest, but like was there around the longest. I don't know. I hope we find out.
Yeah, so I really I really love the idea that, like, you know, like the old saying, like, when life closes a door, you know, sometimes a window opens. Like, it's that sort of idea of, like, this is his backup plan. This is his plan that he knew he had to make. And again, like, time travel stories are very confusing for me sometimes, because what is as soon as you say, okay, so he who remains knows everything, but he didn't know whether or not he would survive the war with Loki, or
I think he presumed that he wouldn't, which I think is a fair, like, you know what really messes me up about this particular time travel series is how the Norse, like, how gods, how the Infinity Stones, how the Nine Realms, how all of these things are technically a part of the sacred timeline, and that every planet is a part of the
Yeah.
Like, it's not just Earth, it's like the entire multiverse.
The entire universe, and then also the multiverse that, like, Doctor Strange, like, travels to. And it's like, when is the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie versus, like, what is too many questions. I just kind of, like, go, like, okay.
Also, like, the timeline of events is different than our world, so we can't even use our world as a benchmark for things.
Yeah, because,
like, let's say,
differences,
the Chicago World Fair exists on the sacred timeline, but, like, does, you know, the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire exist, like, etc., like, all of these other events that are not confirmed.
Is
like,
the sacred timeline our timeline, and the other ones are the Marvel timelines? Because the, like, yeah, World Fair
the
happened.
sacred timeline includes Loki.
That's
and it
true.
includes Thor,
No,
and it
you're
includes
right.
all of these
You're
things.
right.
So it's like, it can't be our timeline because the timeline of events
Well,
is
this
different.
Is a fiction, so
It's weird. I don't.
yeah, it's
nothing
hard,
I know is reliable.
but it's hard to wrap your brain around when you say, like, okay, so he knew everything and he knew enough to make a plan, but then he didn't know if this plan would succeed, or he didn't know. Like, I don't know. It just starts to get very twisted for me.
He who does not know nothing.
He really did, in the end, after eons, did not know everything. He was like 99.99999% correct. And then there was that tiny little percentage that he was not correct. Miss Minutes decides to blend in, and she looks like a cartoon version of her cartoon clock, an old-timey version. I think she looks cute as... It's kind of like a blend of, like, Betty Boop and Miss Minutes, which is interesting when we get to later on in the episode.
Yeah. Miss Minutes in this whole episode is confusing anyway.
Yeah.
What do you want, girl? I mean, yeah, it does. The orange always feels out of place.
So they go, and she drops off the book in the package. She's like, I can't believe I just had to do this. This is so weird. They immediately leave. And Victor Timely, as a small boy, goes and picks it up. And it is a TVA guidebook, which has all of the directions on everything to do with the TVA. But yeah, the orange always feels very bright in this world.
I think that's an intentional choice.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Everything is very muted.
Mm-hmm. I think they're using a sepia tone filter, so it does feel kind of old-timey as well.
And
back at
cyan.
Back at the TVA, you have the cyan orange filter, or teal and orange filter, and Ouroboros is losing his mind. He keeps on saying we're all gonna die. And effectively, this just directs Loki and Mobius to realize that they only really have one choice, which is to find Miss Minutes in the course of time, so that they can get her to open up the blast doors to work on the loom, so it doesn't destroy the TVA and doesn't destroy all of time.
And
Easy.
like, Sylvie didn't realize that. I'm confused.
Yeah. They need to scale the loom to capacity. That is the only option that they have in it. So they show up in when Renslayer and Miss Minutes originally show up in 1868. they don't see anything. It's just Chicago old time. But I love how they're dressed.
Yeah.
I love the bowler on Loki. He literally
Dapper.
looks so perfect, right?
Looks dapper.
He looks so dapper. They both look great. But it sort of shows you like how timeless suits are, like you've talked about before, Robin.
They're dressed within time appropriateness, but also if you wore that in modern day, it'd be like, oh, that's pretty normal. Yep.
And like them kind of walking
they
past.
have the conversation by the window.
Yeah, by the window. They're and it just sort of shows you like right place, right time, and also like you could have the right place and the right time, but you might not have the right knowledge to even do what you need to do. And so they go forward in time to the other time signature.
And they mention the Chicago Fire, which is important because they go forward to the World's Fair.
Yeah, and the Chicago Fire was before the World's Fair.
I know.
Yeah.
But basically the World's Fair is Chicago proving to everyone, hey, you know, that fire really devastated us, but we're back and we're stronger now.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. All right, let's talk about the World's Fair just a tiny amount. So the World's Fair, which I guess in universe, MC universe, is very similar to the Stark Expo in some ways. Which is both seen from Captain America 1 as well as in, I think, Iron Man 2 is also
maybe
seen.
Iron Man 3? I don't know.
It's in one of the Iron Mans. There's a Stark Expo. And so there's really a focus on both cultural understanding, but also futurism. And in fact, this World's Fair was very famously known for sort of representing both sides of the sort of futurism arguments. One, of course, Edison, who had a very, with the General Electric company, as well as Tesla, Nikola Tesla, who had a different sort of approach to this. In fact, both had displays there and also were available to, like, they showed up to do different presentations on how their sort of power and different ideas worked. In fact, Mobius talks about the World's Fair and says the White City, Edison, and H.H. Holmes. Did you see what those things are?
No.
So the White City was basically like a utopian-esque, or that was the idea of like representing world cultures all in one place. So like there was like a German pavilion and like a Norwegian pavilion, but it was super flawed in a way because it sort of represented especially like white countries and white male power as like an ideal, and showed other countries that had more people of color or other civilizations that were considered to be savages as savages. So it was super flawed in that way. Edison, of course, we know now, stole a lot of inventions and was not a very good person from an invention perspective. He's kind of like the Bills, I guess, like, I don't know that there's a good modern day equivalent, but he's not as good as history had made him out to be.
Mm-hmm.
So he was super flawed as well. And H.H. Holmes was a serial killer and con man that took people to the World's Fair and then later killed them.
Okay.
So why is Mobius mentioning these things that maybe were like very famous but flawed things? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's sort of drawing a parallel,
I mean,
to like it's not as good as you think it is, or maybe it's the right breeding grounds for a supervillain. Maybe.
Interesting. Also, like, it's this whole World's Fair is like meant to commemorate, like, oh, look at America. Wow, look at what America can do. You know, like,
well, there's a lot of futurism. Yeah. So like they would have huge presentations on creating, like Tesla did a big thing on wireless lighting and like all of his technological advances, like the the weird egg thing that would like rise up using electrical power and things like that. Like there's a lot of really cool experiments that were shown
Also,
on display.
They celebrated the 400th anniversary of Columbus's discovery of the New World,
which now we know super flawed.
Flawed deeply.
Yep.
Also, the first Ferris wheel was debuted.
Yeah.
49 countries participated, and several foods made their first debut, including juicy fruit, cream of wheat, Cracker Jacks, and shredded wheat cereal.
Oh, is that why he brings up the Cracker Jacks? That's so funny. He's such a fanboy. Mobius is.
Mobius loves human culture.
And they get their first hint to, okay, we know who's here because of the newspaper that's being sold, the Daily Chicago Press. Ghost clock haunts Midway. My question for you is, this feels like it's not a new thing necessarily. Like if enough people have seen the clock. So they've been there for maybe a couple of weeks or like at least a week, longer than a couple of days.
I mean, Miss Minutes has been there just in the timeline for a little while, so
yeah, it's interesting. Maybe she was showing up just to check on him.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And then we get this like beautiful iris out. So this is called an iris out shot, and it's rarely used today. When Loki and Mobius are walking away, the black hole that fades in on them to cut to a next scene, it's an iris out. Or even like fading in.
It's meant to feel very vintage.
Oh yeah.
And it like sets the tone for the episode.
The inventor of it was Billy Blitzer, who was a cinematographer primarily used it in the 1920s. And even by the 1930s, it was starting to feel dated. And so you really only see it when people are referencing old timiness, although it is used by several directors strategically just to effectively give a spotlight in scene. It's like a director's spotlight to focus in on certain things. But it was more commonly used then, and then only sort of existed later on in a lot of cinema within cartoons. Yeah. So they were like eating snacks, sightseeing, the Cracker Jacks.
It tastes like ash.
It tastes like ash.
No, it doesn't.
And they end up at the Nordic Pavilion, which really did exist, although I don't think that had the 3 statues that they see. But that's a nice ad for the sake of this.
It's for the sake of Loki.
Yeah, exactly. My question for you is, doesn't Odin look exactly like MCU Odin?
Yes.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
And Baldur the Brave is actually an MCU character. He goes from being the hidden half brother of Loki and Thor, older half brother, to an adopted brother in some comics. But when he was like the older half brother, he was hidden because there was like a prophecy he would bring about Ragnarok.
Isn't that literally just the plot of their older sister?
Yeah.
What? That's the plot of Ragnarok.
Yeah.
What?
And but then he was made like an adopted kid, and he
Isn't Loki adopted?
My question for you is though, is this like something that's like a hint, like it's a deep cut, or is it a hint that like maybe Baldur would be a character they bring in the future?
I also think like it is meant to make Loki feel not included. Like they included this guy over you, even though you're technically adopted.
It also sort of leans into how bad the White City was, i.e. even Loki sees it with this crass overgeneralization. You can't reduce an entire culture to a diorama, which is what happened with a lot of the cultures that weren't white, that were presented in the White City, which is wild.
I also think that it's interesting because it's like the MCU does face a lot of flack for their usage of like Nordic gods, and Nordic culture.
Yeah.
So it feels a little bit like ironic for Loki to be saying that when like a bunch of people who like actually have the culture there are like, how dare you say that this is accurate? It's not in any way.
Absolutely. I also think that it's neat to see Mobius be like, sometimes I forget, like, you're one of them. Like, you're a god.
Oh, you're literally a god.
You're literally a god. Like, you're one of those dudes that's, like, you know, really significant. But, like, Mobius is, like, out of time, right? Like, not...
he's so out of touch.
The TVA is this other thing, this otherness.
He's just a butler, Mom.
Yeah. They spot Victor Timely's astounding temporal marvels and decide to show up. It's happening at the German pavilion. So
I mean, yeah, the usage of temporal is
and especially like his name, Victor Timely. It's very like, I created time travel.
Mm-hmm. His name is so weird.
It is, but it's, I mean, you kind of think about the actor and like, it's pretty interesting for us to see how different He Who Remains is from Timely. Like, it's definitely like the same but different, which I really love.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. He's similar to Sylvie.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the point, right?
Man, but like Loki misses Thor.
He does. Yeah, he really did. Hey, when he was kind of looking at Thor and like, Thor's not that tall.
He's like, there's like a musical pang. It goes like, as we look at his face, and then he like dismisses his own feelings and like walks away.
I still think that's going to be an important aspect of.
I need them to.
You need them to hug?
I do.
The
Please.
brothers.
My brothers.
The brothers. So they show up at the German pavilion, and instantly Mobius recognizes that Ravonna is probably there. He has that spider sense. She does like to drink, and there's a lot of alcohol there. Ravonna's there.
German military band.
Yes. Which plays right before he goes on, remember? And Ravonna is keeping Miss Minutes in a bag, much to her annoyance. And we get this great shot of what looks like a mini diorama of the temporal loom. Time moves through each and every one of us.
I can't tell if he's doing like spoken word poetry or if it's just his stutter.
It's
because I think it's both.
Yeah, it's just his presentation, and he's doing it.
Like the intro does sound very poetic.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, are you pausing here because it's poetry, or are you pausing because?
Well, it's a presentation, so.
Well, yeah, no.
For dramatic effect, maybe.
That's what I mean.
It shapes our future. Perhaps we can shape it. And oh my gosh, I loved this moment when Timely gets lit up.
And then
Loki looks so scared.
He looks like he's about to cry.
Right? Like Tom Hiddleston.
I love your acting.
He was so good in this. He looks so scared. He's like, we have to do something. That's one of the variants that He Who Remains warned me about. And Mobius is just like, does he really look like this guy
Mobius
is gonna go and conquer all of time?
Mobius dismissing Loki's like genuine fear. Not good.
I mean, yeah, but it's also good to question it, right? Because like, do all variants, because he's not even a variant, or he is a variant now, do all variants create Kangs? That's my question.
Probably not.
And is Timely for sure going to turn it into a conquering guy? I mean,
I see hints of it. There's one line that makes me go, oh, you're definitely, I need to watch out for you.
Oh, really? What line?
We'll get to it.
Oh, okay.
But it's not all of them are evil, you know. Child in the timeline just doing his little lab experiment is probably not going to become a Kang on his own.
Like he existed on the sacred timeline and just existed. And he wouldn't have become whatever he was going to become without maybe Ravonna's intervention, right? Is that what we're thinking? I think so. chaos particles are transformed into order. Again, that idea of chaos versus order, and that only he who remains can create order out of a chaotic universe is coming back.
I don't know. It's interesting to me because it feels like we constantly are talking about order and chaos, but it doesn't feel like Loki and Mobius are on either side.
No.
They're on, like, and both order and chaos have rejected them. And it's like, you know, the triangle where you have order and chaos, and then you have the third way, the third option.
You have to have like a balance of both because you can't have total order and you can't have total chaos.
I tied in the triangles.
Yes, you did.
And the third option.
We have he turns on the machine.
The
and
electricity that doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't work like that.
It's fine. It was pretty and very sparkly and scared.
Dad has ruined all like electricity scenes for me because I watched one with him and he was like, "That's not how that works," and I'm like, "Oh."
They can make arcing like lightning from machines and stuff like that.
It's not really like that though.
No, but I mean, we know it was animated. It's fine. Ravonna approaches Timely and she says, we need to talk about your future. A moment, please. And there's obviously chemistry between the two of them.
We need to talk about your future? A future where we're getting married and having babies? Sure. Like, it's...
Like, that's his reaction, hey?
Yeah, he's like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And so this is where my theory of Ravonna being a king is coming in.
Why?
Well, okay, so there's two options, which one is more likely. Obviously, they had a romantic relationship in the past of the TVA. That's what Loki overheard, right? And they were partners at some point, those two. Something went wrong and Kang wiped her memory, and then she ended up just being the lackey in the TVA to maintain his dominance over everything. I think it's more interesting if he rejected what Loki and Sylvie bring to the table, which is two variants working together. That's just like me. I just feel like it mirrors and foils and plays well.
You just really want the self-cessed.
No, self-cessed.
I know it's not a thing. I'm just joking.
It's just not a thing.
It's not a thing. You want the self-love.
It metaphorically, symbolically,
the snake eating its own tail
is an Ouroboros. Yeah, it is. It's all connected. And so other investors approach Timely and they're like, "Oh, we want to be partners with you." And he's like, "I don't do partners." And this is
I don't do partners.
I don't do partners. But we hear this multiple times throughout the episode.
This is the big one, though.
This is the big one that like kind of sets it. But an auction starts and buyers start offering up to $1,000.
That's a lot of old world money.
It was a lot of money at that time, yeah.
To us and our modern audience, it's like, you're really selling that for $1,000? Man, you are getting screwed. Also, he never gets his hat again. It's just gone.
Loki gets into a disagreement with a very large gentleman. His hat gets knocked off.
This gentleman's hat is so big.
It is, yes. I think that's classified as stovepipe hat.
It's really tall.
Yes. It's very tall. It's very how you would picture like Abraham Lincoln's hat, like that sort of hat style. But so Loki gets his hat knocked off. Somebody, like a woman, collects it, and he ends up using magic on this man and transporting him outside. The purple sparks are so cute. I just love it every time that Loki uses his magic.
The green sparks?
Yeah, the green sparks.
You said purple.
Oh, sorry. The green sparks. I have trouble with words right now.
That's
apparently.
Okay.
All right. Timely runs out or leaves. Ravonna catches up with him, and then quickly behind we have Mobius and Loki, and they run into a variety of situations like they see a guy who has pants that are supposed to make him taller, and then like the investors come after him.
But before that, Loki is flattering Victor like so heavily, and you can see Victor is like beginning to be like, oh, I like what this man is saying, like, oh yes, you are a distinguished gentleman.
Yeah.
Like, and Ravonna can't get a single word in because Loki's just working his
charm.
charisma.
And it comes out like he's like, oh, you're a confidence trickster, which is, and he's like, I prefer the word luminary. The idea is like you kind of take advantage of people who are not as well informed and are able to be easily tricked.
Also, like, Loki knows how to flatter. Like, look at that. Crazy.
But Timely ends up running through the expo, and because he's being chased by those investors.
I feel like we saw like an Egyptian exhibit.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And he runs towards the Ferris wheel, tricks them, and leaves the Ferris wheel. And as he leaves the Ferris wheel, we get a play of the Avengers theme in tuba, which I thought was really interesting. Like, he successfully, gets away from the investors, and the Avengers theme plays in tuba, like the tuba sound, like tuba music.
I know what a tuba is.
No, I know. I was like, what is happening? And he himself gets cornered,
and then Loki
by
says
Loki.
Like, I don't remember what he says word for word, but it's like something like he puts Victor and himself in a comparison.
Yeah,
and it was so interesting to me. I didn't write it down. I wish I did,
but at that exact moment, Sylvie shows up, and I just wrote down Sylvie, no, because
bad Sylvie.
Sylvie is like a wrecking ball. Like, she shows up,
also,
and it's like
cyan and orange.
Yeah,
are in comparison.
Yeah, exactly. The filter is heavy in this episode on this moment, and again, like, it goes into this huge frustration between Loki and Sylvie, and they're not communicating well.
Sylvie knows more about the situation than Loki does.
She does, but also, like, he's like, you can't let this happen. Like, we need to save the TVA. And she goes into, stopping it from being destroyed and fixing it are two very different things. And she absolutely reminds me of a vengeance goddess form, like Holly, who's like, okay, I don't want to kill this guy, but like, I have no choice. I have to protect others who want to have a chance to live as well. And she's like, do you think that I want to, I will get any joy out of killing this man? And it's like, then don't, Sylvie, don't kill him. I love that, like, the book falls on the ground, the TVA book, and Loki picks it up and chucks it behind him, and Timely catches it, just like how Loki caught the book from Ouroboros.
The passing of the TVA knowledge.
Exactly. And she's like, doesn't this look familiar? Because they're on either side again. And the key is going to be them coming together and finding that middle path, just like you were talking about, an alchemical union. And they need to find their own way together. That's what's missing. And it's framed so strongly with the fact that Timely rejects partnership. He who remains rejects partnership. But it's obviously the thing that Sylvie and Loki want the most.
Partnership with Thor.
Mm-hmm.
Partnership with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Partnership with Mobius.
Mm-hmm.
Partnership with that McDonald's employee. Jack.
They want family. They want friends. They want belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ghost clock.
Ooh, ghost clock. We get this great moment of Miss Minutes. Miss Minutes had a lot of play in this episode. There was a lot of Miss Minutes, hey? So He Who Remains, or Timely, and Ravonna leave, and they show up at his like humble abode that's on this side in in Chicago.
Oh,
There's
but-
so much flirting that
But
happens.
before that, we get this beautiful chase scene.
Oh yeah, there was a really great t-shirt scene. Yeah.
And then we see, and like before the chase scene, we see Mobius and Loki standing there, and Mobius is like, Loki, come on, get on the bicycle with me. The
Yeah, right. The
bicycle. And Loki's like, God, no.
like the 2-seater bicycle. Yeah.
Le vélo pour deux, mommy. The bicycle for two.
Timely
really like those
Timely just
bicycles.
like hides in a hidey space. One other thing about Timely is that there's people that are helping him the whole time. Like there's people, like there's like a carny that passes him stuff. That he slips a guy some money who had helped him in the thing. Like
Lift it with your back.
yeah, like he definitely has people who are helping him throughout. They show up back at his like kind of mini place in Chicago, and he flirts with Ravona. He shows him the chair, and Miss Minutes
Ravona just looks at him. It's so weird because the entire time, like, Ravona and Miss Minutes are treating him like a child.
Yeah.
And there's this like motherly, like, oh, you'll become so great. I'm gonna watch what you'll become.
Yeah.
But they're also flirting with him at the same time.
Yeah.
There's like, why are you behaving like his mom and his wife? What?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, hey, we had that problem when we saw General Dox and
Yeah.
B5's relationship. We
They're
were like,
so weird.
This is weird. And you know, like Timely and Miss Minutes, and she slowly is trying to bring like, I'm special to you, like up in conversations. It's really funny.
She's so jealous of Ravona.
Oh, so jealous.
This line.
They end up heading out, and it comes to, you know, a head that he discovers like the guidebook, and he had created the TVA, or a version of him had, and he was like, it was like the true story of what I had always known about myself, which gave me so much Everything Everywhere All at Once vibes. Like the possibilities were endless, and if he could write the story for himself, it could exist. Yeah. You had thoughts on that?
The minute I take a bite of my cookie, but oh man, the line that's like, it's like the story of myself that I always imagined is true. That was my line that I was like, this is definitely the beginnings of an evil Kang.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because like he has the motives to become a He Who Remains.
Yeah. I think our
he's not there yet, but this was the beginning of me seeing that within him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ravona's like, did you not hear about the death part?
Yeah, that was really funny. I think like they're saying that you becoming Kang isn't necessarily written in stone.
There is no straight way to become a Kang.
Yeah.
It is all up to interpretation.
They end up on the ferry to cross the lake, and he talks about where he writes down all of his ideas. I did want to point out this person tweeted out about the parallels between Sylvie and Loki next to the lake, and Ravona and Timely next to a lake, and sort of sharing like their dreams and things like that with each other.
Whoa.
Yeah, right? Like so there's definitely like, and it feels right, like the partnership idea.
Like, I guess Loki was the one who was like, oh, you know, we should be partners, and Sylvie was like, I don't do partners kind of vibe.
Yeah. And then they overcame that and defeated He Who Remains.
And now they're fighting again.
So there's something in that. I also like the line, I think of this as a correspondence between this me and Ouroboros, the brilliant author of this book. Okay, so speculation time.
I love Ouroboros.
How is OB connected to He Who Remains?
I could see him being connected in several ways, but I honestly just think that OB was like, whoa, we don't have a handbook. We should make a handbook. Like, I don't see, like, maybe He Who Remains instructed him to make one.
Ouroboros is such a unique name, and has so much symbolism associated with it. I'm wondering if Ouroboros existed before He Who Remains took over the TVA. Like, he's like an element of the universe itself.
He's been down there for so long.
No, I know. And it's maybe it's something He Who Remains couldn't get rid of.
Yeah.
You know? So it was like he co-opted the cycle of life and death or something.
Maybe he put him down there to contain him.
Maybe, yeah.
In a way. Because like his like whole like desk situation and the fact that he's on the lowest level or is like,
and he keeps on fixing things as much as he can.
He does kind of feel like he is a little trapped in this like small little area.
Yeah. It's sort of, and this scene like where he's showing his inventions and his ideas in the book sort of shows like he's kind of like an Einstein type person who's all theoretical because he doesn't have the technology to actually prove all of these ideas. And he even made, recommends improvements like the throughput multiplier for the loom. He's able to actually like improve things that are just written in the TVA hand guidebook.
Whoa. Like, it's just so,
it's cool. I don't know.
And that's going to really help at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And into the next one.
Exactly.
Paper flower.
Right. He hands her a paper flower because they flirting, and that he kind of holds the side of her hand.
Yeah.
But she's like, partners?
And then he dumps her in the ocean.
I have high hopes for this partnership. And Miss Minutes is like, you heard her, Victor. Partnership.
Dump her in the water.
Right. So like Miss Minutes sort of plays like the devil on his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly like temptation and selfishness. And we know that the answer to those sorts of things is compassion and unity. So that's where they're at. Victor and Miss Minutes head to his workshop.
Oh, dude.
And he picks up like a device that's like, I don't know what it is.
It's the throughput multiplier.
Is it?
Yeah. It looks like the diagram.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I didn't catch that, but
I was confused, and then on my rewatch I was like, yeah, that looks like the diagram.
So it's pretty obvious that Miss Minutes
is in love with him.
I mean, she does say that later in the episode when she shows up. But
she also wants more.
She wanted to become,
a real girl.
A real girl. Yeah. Like there's this like Pinocchio-esque isms.
Evil Pinocchio.
Evil Pinocchio clock isms. And He Who Remains, not Victor, He Who Remains never
denied her
a body because probably that would mean he would have to share. And he
also
is not good at sharing.
She's not good at sharing either.
She's not, no.
And if given a human body, she would take over, I assure you.
Oh, probably, right? And maybe he was always afraid of that, too.
She is a threat.
Yeah.
She's power hungry. And no matter how much she loves He Who Remains for, like, creating her and stuff, she wants more.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a human body or even being, like, minorly subservient to He Who Remains and him still being at the top would be satisfying to her. She would want to be the one in control.
It feels like...
Also, I love that she's a chess AI.
Yeah. That's cute, hey? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It means that she's a logical thinker.
Yeah. I find her so scary.
She's horrifying.
She's horrifying. And I think this is sort of like truthfully, if Ultron was actually successful, this would have been the story that they did, because she is horrifying compared to Ultron. Like, she's really scary.
Ultron was scary, but this is
sort of... So this was a plot line that happened in the comics. Friday from, like, Spider-Man's suit? That AI fell in love with Tony Stark.
Oh.
And became sentient and went after him and stuff like that. So this is sort of like that plot line from the comics. But Friday's good as far as we know.
I like Friday.
In the comics.
Prototype of the
pruner. Yeah. Ravonna grabs the prototype pruner and she comes out and says, I'm the only one who has what it is to lead and to keep order. The second I left, everything crumbled. And Mobius is like, try to keep her calm because they need Victor timely. Victor had like gotten rid of Miss Minutes by now, which pisses her off.
I mean, she's still an AI, so she can still be minorly controlled, which is good.
And so like they're in this discussion, and of course Sylvie shows up.
It's
like
just
our
like,
chaos
I'm
agent.
order. I'm the one in control. Bam, chaos.
Yeah, and the conversation between Victor and Sylvie, he's like I'm not him.
I have so many thoughts.
Okay.
They have this like whole conversation where he's pleading with Sylvie, and he's like, he's basically saying what she's been saying this whole time.
Yeah.
Her whole life is, I can make my own choices. I'm a different person than this other guy who I don't know.
Yeah.
And just because he made a choice, this other version of me made a choice, doesn't mean that that's the choice I'm going to make. I can make my own choices. And like, she's like,
Wait a
whoa,
second.
this really, really resonates with Sylvie because like, the choices of other Lokis, like including the Loki we follow, are not her own choices.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she uses a different name. She doesn't use Loki.
Mm-hmm.
She's Sylvie. She is the enchantress. She is even like, it's sometimes I forget that she's a Loki variant because like she doesn't behave like one. She's got her own history, her own set of beliefs and values. Like she is not Loki. And that like Victor pleading like, I'm not him
really got through to her.
Really resonates. So she lets him live, and it's like, whoa, they're foils.
Yeah. And so Mobius and Loki take Victor back to
go to the door. Go
TVA.
to the door. Go.
We don't see anything else there, and Sylvia's left alone with Ravonna. And
what happens when you lock order versus chaos in a cage?
Yeah, and she doesn't kill her. She beats the crap out of her a little bit. But
and then sends her to the end of time.
Yeah, sends her to the end of time, and there's he who remains just sitting there.
His corpse is rotting.
Still there.
It's so
it almost looks mummified, like it wasn't allowed to rot because there is no time. So
he's still a little decayed, and I think that that's a little horrifying for Ravonna to see, considering the fact that she was in love with him.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, it's like, oh, and then the like stone falls, and it's just like this like broken standstill of like, well, what do we do now?
What do we do now? And we have Miss Minutes show up, and she finishes her "I love you" that she was
great.
gonna. Oh, great! And she reveals to Ravonna that she knows things about her, but it will only make her mad. So,
I have my end thoughts.
What are those, Robin?
I have several end thoughts of all of the characters we've been following throughout this episode. I have my end outcomes, and then you can do your end outcomes.
Okay.
If you want. So Loki and Mobius, I feel like they've been kind of off with each other.
Yeah.
This whole time.
Out of sync, yeah.
Like they're very looking at my notes. No, you're just agreeing? Okay, yeah. They're like out of sync with each other. And like I wrote this down a few times because like they have the same goal, but they're not communicating well.
Yeah.
And nor are Sylvie and Loki.
Yeah.
Honestly, no one is communicating well in this entire episode. But like especially Mobius and Loki, like no, we haven't had any problems come from it yet, but they're out of sync. But in the end, they got what they wanted. The TVA should be safe for now. They have Victor. That's good. I hope it works.
I mean, if you kind of think about this like from a meta perspective of the MCU, it's like the MCU had one timeline and now the TVA has to outfit the MCU to allow multiple timelines to allow things to happen. And so there's almost like this meta perspective of when you think about the storytellers of Marvel in the MCU and like how they had to like It's almost like the story of the story being
They're-
told.
They had to retrofit the loom.
Retrofit the loom so that they could actually have multiple timelines in the same space.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And Ravonna gets kicked to the end of time, gets to see the devastation of Sylvie, what chaos creates. Mwahaha. Get to see the man she loves mildly decaying. Lol. And then, Miss Minutes is definitely the overarching villain.
Which is great.
And also, what is that secret? Like, what?
So I can kind of see two things. Like, maybe she was in partnership with He Who Remains, and
I hope it's something
she
that
tried to betray him, and then he betrayed her, and then he wiped her memory. Or I mean,
she wiped her memory. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, I still think that she might be a Kang. We're holding out for the dark horse on this one because I think that would make it like.
I hope it's something
really
Ravonna
interesting.
already knows.
Oh, that would be interesting.
I hope
yeah.
it's something Miss Minute thinks is going to get more control for Miss Minutes, but in actuality, it's just something Ravonna is already aware of. I like that.
Interesting.
And Sylvie continues to be an agent of unpredictability and instability. We have no way of knowing what her goals or her decisions are. Aside from the fact that she wants freedom for herself
Yeah.
and for all variants, the freedom to make your own choices, the freedom to.
I think she'll be happier if she can see how her and Loki working together will make a better universe. I just don't think that she can see it right now.
I don't even really think she knows what she wants, so
No.
it's like hard to tell. What
Yeah,
she
she's in this
wants.
like very lost place where
Girl's a snow
she's-
queen.
Exactly. She's still in that Snow Queen phase. I have a bunch of open.
She keeps getting involved though, which is like not
questions.
very snow queeny.
No. She's totally moving away to being a straight up queen.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
like
yeah, and even a king phase where she's a leader of others.
she keeps just like getting involved
Yeah.
in things.
because she's learning she needs to protect those she loves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even think she knows it yet. She's just like doing it because that's how she feels like she has to. And yeah, so Victor Timely is either going to become a threat or he's going to become a variable in the plot at large. I don't know if he's going to be a major villain or if he's going to be, there helping out, but he's a variable, but he could potentially become a threat.
But now he's a variant. There is a Victor Timely that never received a book, right?
A normal guy who did his little science project.
Yeah, there's a Victor Timely out there that just lived his life as an inventor on his own.
And we can see that he has good inventions that are unrelated to time and the TVA. So I think that he does become a inventor of some kind, but not to the same caliber.
Yeah.
Probably.
It would be interesting to see that Victor Timely and see like what is the Sacred Timelines version.
I hope he has
of
different
Kang.
hair.
Yeah.
I hope he's just got like the best hair. And then the other Victor's like, what? What are your open questions? We can do some
so-
speculation.
I'm still kind of thinking about variants as versions of reincarnation in some ways. It just helps me kind of think about them a little bit more. Like, because how do you get an alligator Loki and a Loki, right? Like,
I love Gator Loki.
I
I mean, well, technically,
mm-hmm.
we could think about it from the perspective of the Spider-Verse, because Spider-Verse is technically MCU, right?
Yeah,
So
sort of.
it's adjacent to MCU, Sony, and Marvel.
Yeah.
But you can think about it from the perspective of like Spider-Verse, where everything is possible.
Yeah.
Like there's a car Spider-Man. Why can't there be an alligator Loki?
Yeah.
I know that like Spider-Verse works on different rules than like the TVA and variants do, but
Peter Porker.
it's like a similar concept,
Yeah, I still I'm still struggling with the like Kangs can kind of appear whenever, Lokis can kind of appear whenever, and so it's not like I made this one decision and this built off this branch. It's more like everything everywhere all at once, where all the versions of everything potentially exist. It's
Sylvie
helping me.
Sylvie didn't make a choice to be a woman. She just was born a woman, and then therefore was a variant.
Yeah.
And therefore was victimized because you do not follow your freaking genetics were against you. Like,
yeah.
So you can become a variant because of literally being born, because of existing at the wrong time in the wrong place, because you have hot dog fingers instead of normal fingers. Like,
yes, exactly.
I want to watch Everywhere All at Once again.
Okay, that sounds good. The plan itself was kind of like a break glass in case of emergency. So again, like that makes me think like what was Victor like in the sacred timeline? And I really want to know past Ravonna and He Who Remains history. Show me that. Oh, I do have a side thing for you to think about. In the comics, Ravonna Renslayer is a princess who has an on again, off again romantic relationship / enemies relationship with Kang.
Wow. I'm so surprised.
I mean, it's not surprising, but it sort of gives you the idea of what they're going for, I think, with her. Yeah. So it's cool. Well, that wraps up this episode for
this one was a weird one.
It was a weird one, yeah.
I think, okay, would you say, how do you feel about this in comparison with the 2 other episodes? I still think
2.
I still think that
number 1 was the best.
Yeah, number 1 was really the strongest, but I actually really think I liked number 2 the most.
Oh, really?
Like it was weak, but it was also like really good interpersonal conversation between
Sylvie and Loki and
Mobius and Loki. You know,
Loki.
I'm a Mobius Loki fan till the day I die.
I know. I just felt like Loki got the best. Like this just wasn't a Loki focused episode, so
this was, and like I've never really followed the Ravonna plot. I'm like into it now because like I have to be, but like because it's important. But I just really liked episode 2, I think, the most.
Yeah.
And I just like them eating pie together. This makes me happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. We'll wrap this up and we will be back next time for a new episode
next week.
Cheers.
Bye.
On the edge of a dream.